I'm Kerrie Penny, and you're listening to Secret Heart Broadcasting. Welcome to Secret Heart Broadcasting. Today I'm going to be speaking with Michelena Bamford, Mosaic artist, free spirit, creative, mother, traveler, adventurer, says yes to life. And what I loved about how we met, I mean, we sort of had this knowledge of each other over many years.
We have.
Yeah, and then here we are in the studio. So I'm so excited about this conversation. So I vaguely remember meeting you. I was living in a house and was leaving a long-time relationship, and I think you had moved in next door.
We briefly met in that moment, and I didn't really remember you the next time. It was a number of years until I saw you again, but it was like I just remember us saying, I know you from somewhere, and how do we know each other? And we kept trying to figure it out, and then all of a sudden we had the epiphany and realized, oh yes, it was from Inglewood.
We were next door neighbors, but yeah, we both had that. You look familiar to me.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I love this. I love seeing you again, and I've always felt our paths would cross.
Yes,
again in some way. I really love, the myth of the red thread. Have you heard of?
Tell me. Let's begin with a story.
Yeah, not really a story, but I'm a very visual person, and quite often, I love weavings, and I feel like our paths are weaving, and it's a Chinese myth, I think, or a folk tale. And it was in relation to, I think, soulmates, but I sort of have applied it to everybody. But that when you're born, the deity or whoever it is ties like a little red thread around a finger, and then it's joined to your soulmate in life. And it doesn't matter, your paths will go all these ways, and the thread stretches and gets tangled, and you can be anywhere and everywhere, but eventually you come back. And I've always loved this sense that we are connected. There's these little invisible red threads that connect us, and we can weave and go lots of different places, but always come back tethered to that thread that we have between one another. So
I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're a red thread.
Yes.
Friend. It's like
I'm a red thread friend.
We keep tethering and go weaving in and out of one another's worlds. But yeah, it feels lovely. It was such an honor that you asked me and reached out here, because I've been following so much of your beautiful writing and posts on Instagram as well. And so, you feel like you know these people.
Yes.
And you have like an insight, especially those that I think share, on social media as well. And so even though it's been so many years since we've actually been face to face,
officially met,
it's lovely, to follow your journey.
Oh, thank you. And yours. Well, maybe we should start. So I do want to talk about your mosaics and your art and your creative process. But speaking of Instagram and following each other, during COVID, and of course I follow you on Instagram at McBam.
Yes.
I watched as you just completely, talk about a mosaic. It almost felt like a breaking of an old life and a beginning of a new one. Can we talk about that? Because as everyone was very interior and frightened during COVID, you just made this very big leap. Tell me more.
Yes, it really was a complete life upheaval. So shortly before COVID, I had closed my studio space. I had a commercial studio space, and decided, that the marriage that I had been in for nearly 30 years was not going to last. And my beautiful sons had grown and were sort of well on their way. The youngest was just graduating high school, and it felt like this place in my life where I was ready for a rebirthing of myself. There had been so much focus on, raising others and doing for others. And my 50th birthday was coming up, and I knew I had to make some big life changes. And I wanted to go back to Australia. So I lived there as a child. I'm actually a dual citizen. My father lives there. My siblings have all been back or lived there at one time or another, but I had never been. And since I was 9 or almost 9 years old. And so my heart was really calling me to go back there. And I felt like, as part of being able to move on to this next stage of life, I really needed to revisit my childhood and my little girl self. And there were so many memories and affinities that I felt with Australia and that I felt were such a part of me that I really needed to go back and revisit, I think, to figure out who I was now at this point. I needed to understand my past to be able to go and move further into the future in the way that I wanted to. So it was very important to me to go back there.
Yeah.
And then, the serendipity of life kind of came in. Sorry, was there a question?
No, I was going to say, so two things. Of course, my mind is just moving a mile a minute, but that idea of, Michelena Bamford, we are going to have a great conversation. After being a mother, marrying early, having this career, who am I now?
Yes.
Who am I now? Am I when I'm not mother? And I think, for me, another question or thing that happened was my own mother died. So I was like, okay, am I daughter? Am I mother? Who am I? And this idea of going back to the little girl, the uninhibited, before the nine, before the age of 9, who is that? Who is that? Who is that spirit? And what is she trying to tell me? I love that journey. And watching the journey, I mean, it didn't look very easy. You were getting on a plane. A peak COVID, I think there was, I don't know how many hours you spent on a plane, but I think you had to wear a mask and a shield and goggles and wow.
It was such a surreal experience because it was so, because of my citizenship, and also so there was another entry point in there. I was actually going to help another mother that was in Australia. So I was planning to go myself, and I was looking for other ways that I could do that, or possibly through like an arts grant, or figure that travel piece out. But then, the serendipity sort of stepped in, and through a mutual friend, there was a woman there who was a U.S. citizen that had a child there that needed some like postnatal support, and so it was sort of like this perfect like entry point around, well, you've got to go like now. Because the birth of this baby is happening. And so I had like a compassionate visa, and sort of it expedited and allowed me to travel at this time when, like you say, the world was shutting down. You weren't supposed to be traveling anywhere. And yet, yes, I had this incredibly long journey that went through, the Middle East and layovers, and it was just bizarre. So I finally got there, and then had the quarantine experience in Perth, which was...
Now, how long was that? That was in a hotel room, right?
It's a hotel, and 2 weeks. And again, Australia had very, very strict lockdown policies. I mean, I think because they're this island, nation that is always, they have a history of, invasive species and things coming in. So their border controls are really, really tight. So it was crazy. I mean, we had police escorts from the airport to the hotels, and you could only use certain doors, and it was just so many different checkpoints along the way. It was like I said, a very bizarre, surreal time when I think of it. So it was a 2-week lockdown, and I'm a person that loves myself and can sit with myself and be with myself. But it sure gave me a new perspective and viewpoint that, oh my gosh, if you have any trouble really, really being quiet and being with yourself, this could be a really challenging, difficult thing for a lot of people. But yeah, I felt like there was, thankfully I could touchstone on different people, and, we've got internet, all those things.
Technology.
It was okay.
Yeah, you could be connected.
Yeah, at that time, one of the hardest things for sure was that I was in an upper floor that had no balcony and no opening window. And so you're literally in this little box. It's like a vacuum. And so just the silence and the strangeness of it all. Someone literally knocks on your door, has dropped a plate of food for you, and runs away. Like you can't, there's just no engagement, no seeing another face for that entire 2 times, unless it was on a screen.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really interesting, an interesting way to start this
journey
that I was going back to find. But I kind of needed that little pocket, I think, of time. I did a lot of journaling at that moment and started to go deeply into myself, and have some really fulfilling conversations with people and close friends. And So it was a really interesting way to start that journey back.
I think it's so interesting that you've left your old life in Canada, and closing your art studio was a really big deal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and leaving your marriage too,
Yes,
but
yeah.
both very big deals. To try and just be curious about who little Michelena is, who's this little girl, and then what brings you there is the birth of another soul into the
Yes,
world.
exactly.
And then you're on this journey to find out more.
Yes.
What were some, what were some moments that stick with you about this journey?
I found myself, really, again, like isolated and having to really depend on myself and make some really big decisions about, okay, what is it I really want to do?
Isn't that
Yeah,
the question?
Yeah, where, you have this entire, life, quarter of a century. All I'd been focusing on was, what does everyone else need? And what can I do for anyone else, in such service in the world, which is a wonderful thing. But it was very interesting to find myself completely alone. And honestly, I think I had to get that far away from my life, like literally had to be on the most opposite corner of the world. I think actually Calgary to Perth is something like the third furthest distance, like of cities that you can have in the world apart. So I couldn't have gotten further away from my old life or that life if I wanted to. And so, yeah, there was just something about needing to go back and have a pilgrimage to where I grew up. Going back to my old homes, my old school, old beaches, like places that, these geographies that I needed to see. And I can remember flying in on that coastline for the first time, because I grew up just outside of a small town just outside of Brisbane, so on that Gold Coastline, and seeing that beach, and just the tears flooded. I felt I was home. It was just such a deep resonance with this land, and seeing that water meet the beach, meet the land, that, I just knew I was home, and I needed to be there and to unravel what that meant for me and who I was, having that foundation of my life in that space.
So what does unraveling and discovery look like? I think we've already established you're, pretty courageous, very creative, deep connection to family, and a mosaic artist. So how do you process this journey? And I think whether we're, professional artists or not, it makes sense to sit for a second and process what we're doing.
Although geographically I was so far away from my family, I also, at times, my family of origin, I actually never felt closer to. And I would say that trip for my siblings and my parents, I felt a bond and a closeness to them that I had never really had before, that I didn't expect to have in going there. I kind of thought, this is me kind of shaking off all those things that I knew and those people that were, in my life, on a more daily basis. But the kind of conversations I was having with my siblings, the things I was questioning or discovering about myself, asking about my past, I went back to these places, and I'd be like talking to my parents on the phone as I'm driving, down these streets. I went and knocked on the door of like the home I grew up in as a child, and had this beautiful, I mean, like the people I was meeting and connecting with, it was just magical. Just magical. I met a woman at the door, the house that our family home that I grew up in. I didn't, of course, expect the people that, bought the home from us or to have anything to do with it. But it was actually this woman who was a teacher at this elementary school that I went to. She wasn't my teacher. She was probably my sister's teacher.
Wow.
But she was still there. Her and like her husband, he couldn't come to the door, again, the health issues. And in their like 90s. But she was still living in the house. There was a home care worker there with her, and she came out and we had the most beautiful conversation. And yeah, there's something about touching into those early childhood experiences and places. It was such a distinct division for me. It's like my life in Australia and then my life after in Canada. So I felt like I was kind of melding these things.
Yeah,
together.
knitting together this 9-year-old girl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Putting the pieces
Yeah,
together.
putting the
as you
pieces
say.
together.
Yeah.
Did you actually do art on this journey?
So when I realized I wasn't feeling ready to come home yet, and then again the borders and the allowances in Australia, I actually wasn't allowed to come back into Canada because I went on an Australian citizenship and visa. Australians weren't allowed out of the country.
Ah, right.
And so I had a second lockdown later in my journey, which was really difficult because I just couldn't get home. I wasn't allowed to come back. But at this point earlier on, I really wanted to, discover more, stay there more, see what else was there for me. And knowing that I also needed to support myself somehow if I wanted to stay longer and figure out something to do. I again made a big leap and just cold called some mosaic artists that I knew lived in Australia and to see if they needed, any work or if I could help or engage in any way. And it was just this serendipitous, beautiful thing. This woman that is a renowned international instructor, Marion Shapiro, was doing a big commission, and she could use an assistant, and she had a spare room. And so I could go and work in her studio in the Blue Mountains and create this art with her and stay with them. And that really opened the door to what I consider now as my Blue Mountains family. And I'm still very connected and ingrained in that community. It's like this magical pocket of mosaic artists specifically that are in the Blue Mountains.
Wow.
And through Marion, I met so many other amazing, beautiful people and artists. I felt like there's nothing I could do wrong there. Every time I just said yes. If there was a little knock or a little opportunity, I was like, yes. That was my mantra there.
Wow.
Just say yes. Just follow those instincts. Just see what awaits you and take those leaps of faith. And they always just turned out so magically.
Well, that's like Secret Heart in action.
It really,
yes.
It truly is. It was the greatest lesson in surrender that I could have ever had. And coming from a place where, oh my gosh, your life, I felt like I was having to drive everything all the time and work and push and orchestrate. And, there's just such a masculine energy in the doing and being in life sometimes, and in being, a solo entrepreneur and, managing a household, all of those things. Yet there it was, I just had to really be in my feminine and really be in the allowing and the surrendering and just trusting that whatever was coming was meant to be, and take that leap. And the people I met and the opportunities that I had and the places I got to see.
And your mirror studio, the Mirror Wolf Willow, which I do want to talk about. So you had said, we met for real when I had a communication company, and we were doing documentaries on community builders in our city. And I met you because you were working on an art project, an art in public spaces project for your community.
Yes.
So cut to whatever that was, 25 years later, and I meet, Michelena Bamford, this mosaic artist who has an art studio in her community, who's building this project for the community. And that was a cool project. But I had not, aside from seeing mosaics in historical context, right? Like, the mosaic at Pompeii, or the Romans, those crazy Greeks.
Yes.
Yeah, they knew their mosaics. I didn't know a lot about modern mosaic. And can you just talk a little bit about that art form?
Yeah, gosh, I didn't really know anything about it either, but I was home with little babies and going a little bit crazy and needed an outlet. I didn't go to art school. I took kinesiology in university, but I was always artistic and creative as a child, like growing up. And I thought I need an outlet. So I took a mosaic stepping stone class through the city of Calgary, leisure learning lessons or whatever it was to get myself out of the house once a week. And I just fell in love with it, Kerrie. It's like when I got the essence of what it is and what you could do with it, it's like something just clicked with me. And I just had this really deep knowing that there was so much potential in this medium. And I could just see instantly the possibilities of what you could do, and applying, taking all these little pieces and putting them back together in a way that creates something whole. It was a beautiful metaphor in so many ways for me. And because I love people and engaging with community, it just was like this really wonderful vehicle that I could see allowing for collaborative, community-based work. And it was at a time when I wanted to have so much freedom and flexibility in my life that would allow me to raise my children, full time, but also, have some work that I could work around that. And so I started developing a curriculum and programs to go into schools, and did so many Mosaic murals in communities, and it gave me this freedom to be a stay-at-home mom, as well as create art and make work for myself that fit into that life.
And out of pieces that might have been discarded.
There's so many great things about it.
Oh my gosh, okay, so I had a bowl my mom gave me. Oh, the emotions. Yeah, and it had a big chip in it, and I was like, "Oh, what am I going to do with this bowl?" It actually had a lot of meaning to me.
Yes.
And my secret heart was like, drive this bowl over to Michelena. Yeah. And I did.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. No, like I said, there's so many beautiful connections with this medium. And of course, from an environmental standpoint, you can recycle all of these objects, but I have this same, response, Kerrie, is that these are beautiful objects and things that people had through their life. They, how many things were made or stirred in those bowls that are so beautiful, but maybe they're not microwave safe anymore. People don't know what to do with them if they get broken. But it gives these objects and these essences of our daily life, and these people that held these vessels, a chance to live on in some way. And so you can definitely make something beautiful from the broken, and have this really beautiful meaning, which is lovely. Yeah. So I love that about it. I love that you can recycle things and bring in so much meaning in the objects themselves. So that was really a huge part of my work, was asking. I remember I did a mural, a legacy mural for the grade 9 girls at the Calgary Arts, or the Calgary Girls School. And I asked them all to when I'm thinking about what I was like in grade 9, and you've got your dresser drawers or your bedroom shoe boxes filled with all your special objects, or just things that you pick up at the keychains, or the pet dog tags, or the old little My Little Pony things. And these all tell a story and represent us in a certain way. And so I asked them to bring in some of these objects from their bedrooms and put them in the mosaic as well. And it just makes it so meaningful. And then, years later, they're able to go up and see this beautiful piece on the wall, and oh, that was me. That's from my life. That's from my, bedside table, or this thing that I owned or had. Yeah, it's like a little snapshot of time that can carry on in some way.
Yeah, like the Hellenistic mosaics,
exactly.
Or the Roman mosaics.
I mean, they're around for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's this huge piece, and I do love that. I love the legacy of that these are things that will be around far after I'm gone. These murals that I've created and worked with communities, and they can just be a snapshot of these people and this time, and they'll be up for many, 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 many years.
I'm wondering if your own, what you create has changed in the different phases of your life. We spoke about, you as a young mother, and we both share that, and then needing to do something creative. Then this, turning 50, and this almost mythical sort of journey.
Yeah, I made some really powerful, meaningful art at that time when I was in Australia again. There were some exhibitions that were going on, some opportunities for me to create work. This second lockdown that I was in was very isolating, and I ended up doing a series of work in that space as well. And for the first time, I wasn't making a piece of art for this community garden or this school beautification. I was making art for me, and I was allowing how I was feeling and the context of my life at that time to come through in a creative way. And I made, again, bold leaps, making sculptural work that I've never worked in sculpture before, but going three-dimensional, integrating other aspects. I put some of my hair in some of the pieces, but again, always using meaningful objects that would say something about my personal story at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a very new way of working for me, and also a time I was ready for it. I've done so many other art pieces for so many other people. I wanted to make art for myself. I wanted to discover what my voice was, and what was possible for me to make and create just for myself.
And at 50, which I think is, we have every day I am thankful. I remember my mother saying this. She's like, every day I wake up and I'm grateful for another day. And I'd be like, oh. And that is me today.
Yes.
Like at this age,
Yes.
I think, oh my goodness, I'm healthy. I have community. I have the gift of this day to live this day, notice what I want to bring in on this day. It's quite possible. And it's not always easy.
No.
But to be present is just such a gift.
Yeah, and art does that. I mean, it really is so therapeutic. You have to just be focusing and present with the materials in front of you, or doing and it doesn't matter. You can be closing your eyes and scribbling. You can just be rubbing a lump of clay between your hands or kneading it in some way. It doesn't matter what it is, but art is a meditation. And that was of such value for me when I had the studio space and teaching all these workshops, and just seeing like it really was therapy for people. It really gave people a way to process and express what was going on inside of them and in their lives. And it's an amazing thing.
I'm curious about the exploration of the feminine, which so I'm really struck by the getting to know this 9-year-old girl. And I have a very similar story about looking to, at midlife, looking to see who was that girl in that photo.
Right.
Who is that girl who is unafraid?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if in your art exploration, is there more revealed about the feminine in the world, or the feminine in your life? And I know, some people might say, well, that's a really dualistic kind of, question I'm setting up for you. But I think there is deep wisdom in the feminine that I know for myself I've only accessed as I've gotten older.
I think I've always carried very strong feminine energy and really appreciated that. So I don't feel like it's something that I have to, had to come to and embrace more in my life so much. But I'm really valuing the importance of it more. And I can see, in the context of our world, it's what our world needs. It's what our future needs.
I would say our world's out of balance. Would you agree, and why?
100% out of balance. I mean, it's been driven. I mean, like, these are patriarchal ideologies that have been oppressive and, made people think that you have to be this way in the world for so long. And we all need this balance. We need to, and I think as I age, even more at this stage in my life, owning more of that. I really don't like the word crone. Do you?
Well, I have had an interesting
because I feel it. I know this is this essence, but there's something about that terminology. I want a different word.
It feels pejorative, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Crone.
Yeah.
Crone.
I know.
Yeah, and I've looked at crone. My first manuscript was called crone-ish, and
okay.
Yeah, a better word than crone.
So yeah, I would like that, but I do feel I am really stepping into this, my wise woman. For sure. And I can just see how important it is that we embrace more feminine ways of being in this world. Things like taking normal rest breaks, nourishing, our nervous systems, looking at things through a lens of community and compassion, rather than drive and
competition.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wanted, I wanted daughters so badly. Everyone knows this about me. It's like I really wanted a mini me. I wanted daughters so much in life because I thought, we need more of these strong, feminist women, in this world. But I've really come to realize that no, what we need are beautiful, open-hearted young men that can appreciate and hold feminine space and hold space for women, and that is really of such value. We've been fighting this fight, for centuries.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say for generations,
No,
but for
centuries.
centuries. Yeah, yeah. Look back to those mosaics, the Greeks and the Romans.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. It's yeah, and so it's got to be the masculine side that I think relinquishes now, that says, oh wait, there's this other way of being, and there's a lot of value to being this way in the world,
in partnership.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the other ways we met, and this has also just come to me as we're speaking, there used to be a kind of like a cemetery ritual that would happen in the city that we're in.
The Equinox Vigil.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sharon Stevens, amazing. She began doing this every fall equinox. She would invite people to come to the Union Cemetery, and it was a way of giving space and honoring those that had passed on, and a way of feeling the emotions of that. I mean, North Americans are not great at dealing with death, and so
and feeling grief.
Exactly, yeah, what that is. So many other cultures are just so open about it, but we tend not to be. So it was amazing. She would have poetry, and choirs would be singing, and you would make a little pilgrimage through the cemetery, and she always engaged artists to come in and set up some sort of an installation or an art piece that people could enjoy and just take moments of being in this beautiful, quiet space that so many people have so much fear about. But she just opened it up and welcomed people in, and welcomed the grief and the feelings. And it was an honor for me to participate as an artist in the Equinox Vigil for three years. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned that there are choirs that specifically practice to sing a soul out of the body. So to come to hospice, or to come to... And I just thought, oh, that's so beautiful. More ritual like that.
Yeah, so much more ritual. Yeah, it was really lovely. It was, absolutely one of the most meaningful public art projects that I've done. And I have a whole series of work. It's called Treasured, and speaking about these objects and these items. So at the vigil, I created like a almost life-size huge vessel, like almost like a crematorial urn, and invited people to bring special objects, little treasures, tchotchkes from people that had passed, and applied it to this huge vessel. So it's based on memory ware vessels, which is actually an art form that they believe was probably brought over by African slaves. And so it was prevalent in the southern U.S. But as grave markers, they would take these personal objects, a necklace or a pocket knife or someone's silverware, a beer mug or whatever, and they would sort of, bind them all and create like an assemblage sort of art piece that of all these items that reflected this person in their life here. And that would be the grave marker. And then the Victorians took it on. It sort of became like a scrapbooking type of like a three-dimensional scrapbooking of someone's life. And when I came up, it has many ties to Mosaic and this assemblage work. And again, all these little pieces that you bring together to create, one unified object. I just love it. And I've made several in this series now. And it will just evolve and go on. And I've been very fortunate to help other people move through their death processes by having these objects. I've even gone to estate sales and seeing the shoe boxes or the old drawer of these, this collection, this person. I found these lovely little brass objects. I mean, they're just magical. Everything from little chickens that you can, lift up as an urn, and musical instruments and animals that were all like solid brass. And clearly someone had loved these things and taken so much time to collect them over how many years, their lifetime. And here they were in a shoebox for, $5 or whatever. And so I just feel I need to save that in some way, or honor that person or those intentions in some way. And so, yeah, bought the shoebox of objects and created, this memory of our vessel of, I'm not sure who this person was, but they're living on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, what a great
this art piece.
What a great way for a family to come together and mark
absolutely,
mark the death.
absolutely.
Yeah.
These rituals, again, these are these feminine ways of being. Is that not being afraid? I mean, like what greater points in life are there, rather the entry of birth, and the exit of death. And, throughout history, women have been the ones, the doulas, the midwives, the ones caring for, enabling, birthing these things into this world and helping them leave the world as well. And there's just so many beautiful lessons in that as well. And I've been fortunate to be present at deaths as well in my life. And it is a profound and beautiful thing.
I wanted to ask about legacy, and just, is that important to you? I mean, you have, of course you have your family and you have your art, but is that important? And what would be a good legacy? We hear that bandied about a lot. Oh, I want to leave a good legacy.
Well, certainly my legacy are my children. Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate, and I love this art medium that could be around for, hundreds of years potentially. And so there is definitely a legacy in leaving beauty in this world. That's very important to me when I think about, what I want to share as an artist in this world. I really want to share the beauty of this world, whether that be through death or, birth. All the full experience here is beautiful. And so there's a legacy of beauty to be left. But certainly I've always felt a huge calling to be a mother. I've always wanted to be a mother. And there's, of course, that piece of legacy in that, and carrying on your line. Or, I mean, they are my greatest, creations, these beautiful young men, knowing that they are going to carry on, our family, or these generations, or these beautiful lessons that I hope I can impart on them as they go too. But yeah, they're just beautiful humans.
So the feminine line, if we explore that, that's one thing I'm personally very interested in. Your feminine line through to raising these open-hearted, thoughtful, kind young men.
Yes.
I think that's something I love that is going through.
Yeah, I think what else can you do? I mean, again, you could work at a job or feel you contribute in that way in your life. But I thought, what greater way to make an impact and have a legacy in the world than to have other people that are of value and of service in the world, and that are going to make the world a better place as well. And I really, my boys are incredible, and they do that. They are my inspiration. I mean, I did have, started my family young, and I felt I really had to grow up with them in a lot of ways. So, I feel like we have been evolving and growing together, and I get endless inspiration from them.
And now, their wives, their children, the children you've taught through your...
Yeah. And so I'm a grandmother now as well. Yeah, which is... I just can't put in words. I really am trying to think about how I can express this creatively in some way. But there is just something about having that love that you have for your child, and yes, seeing that passed on in that way, and loving. I don't just love my grandson, infinitely, but I love who my son has become as a father through him as well. which is, just something you just don't know how you're going to feel, or you don't know what to expect. But seeing my son be a good father and partner in life is just one of the most heart expanding things that I've ever experienced. Yeah, it's profound. Yeah, absolutely profound.
Lovely.
and I just also have to speak to, I said earlier that I really wanted daughters. And I just have to say that my son found this really beautiful woman, in life, in this partnership to have this child with. And it just feels lovely to feel like I have a daughter in her as well. And again, the synchronicities of life are amazing, because she grew up without a mother. And so it just feels like this such a special thing. I always thought I would never have the opportunity to, be a mother of the bride or be present, and really ingrained in the birth of a child and my family. And she makes that possible for me. So yeah, it again, the heart expanding happenings here are just incredible. I'm just so full of love, Kerrie. I can't even tell you that. Yeah, my son's, this beautiful young woman, his grandchild is,
Well, love is resonant, from you and through you. It's just been a wonderful conversation. One of the questions I asked was if there was a book or books you're reading that you wanted to talk about or recommend, and if you have something great, and if not, that's okay too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, how can I? Rick Rubin, The Creative Way. Is that the title? I don't even know. It sits on my coffee table. It's a fabulous book. Are you familiar?
I am familiar with Rick Rubin.
Yes, of course. Amazing music producer, right? But he has written this beautiful book. You don't have to read it front to back. I will grab my tea or coffee, sit on the couch, and just open it to a page. And they're just, sometimes 1 or 2 pages or a very short chapter, just on his own sort of ideas or understandings of what it means to be an artist in this world, or how being creative, affects things in this world. And it's just been really fulfilling. And I just love just randomly opening a page and knowing I'm getting the message I meant to read that day. And it's been very affirming as an artist as well. Again, this is not a way of being in the world that a lot of people understand or respect very much. And I really hope that could be one of the shifts with having the feminine embraced more as well. It's that as a woman, as a mother, as an artist, I feel like those are, 3 things that are not acknowledged or respected very much in this world. And it's been a struggle, I can tell you, many, many times, to know that is the essence of who I am and what I need to be in this world. But know that that's going to come with a lot of financial instability, or a lack of respect or acknowledgement from most people in society. And so, I feel like his book is shining more of a light on how important that is, and necessary artists and art are in this world. Yeah,
to help us understand. One last question. 9-year-old Michelena, how's she doing?
She's great. She feels, definitely more integrated. But knowing that there's that connection, that red thread to Australia, is also, very peace. It gives me a lot of peace and contentment as well. But I do know and feel her resonance alive and very well in me and into my children and their children. And it's expansive. She feels expansive. She feels seen. and more expansive and
Loved.
yeah, completely loved.
Aw.
Yes.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming down to have this conversation today on Secret Heart
It was
Broadcasting.
such an honor.
Oh,
Such
and
an
for
honor. I
me.
feel like I could keep talking.
I know.
I want to
Part
know
two.
more about. Yeah, exactly. It was so lovely because I also come from my matriarchal line is Italian, and so there's like a lot of strong, powerful, feminine energy and love that comes from my family of origin that is always through as well. Yeah.
What a gift.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kerrie. Yeah, it was lovely.
Thank you for listening to Secret Heart Broadcasting. And I wonder what your secret heart's telling you.